Hello everyone, this is the first part from a series of tutorials that I'm going to make about MegaScans, and I'm going to work in Maya, and the content of the tutorial is going to be to create moss with the Atlas assets. So this tutorial is to create something similar from what I rendered in this image, and this image was created when I started with MegaScans and I started to use the moss cards, as you can see, and I developed this image to understand the workflow of creating this type of result. And in the image you can see it's a really natural result in the final scatter, but also I have some issues in some parts. For example, this flat mouse, as you can see, it doesn't look like the others. For example, this on the back, it's almost the same kind, but this is made with a different process. And so I evolved this process by the creation of this image. So in this image you can see the first iterations and the latest iterations of the mouse, because I forgot to delete them. So well, it's also good because I can see the bad things like these ones, which looks pretty flat, and also this kind of problems, of issues that I had, and I'm going to explain you how did I solve them or approach them to get a different look to them while I improved the workflow. So yeah, this is the first part. I just want to talk about the image, and I'm going to go right now to MegaScans with inside bridge, and okay guys, here we are inside Quicksell Bridge, and you will need some points to work with these assets. And the first, you will need to type moss in here and go to the Atlas section, and if you scroll a bit, find this asset. As you see, this is a really nice asset because it has different types of moss, and they are pretty organized. So, well, if you just click in download, you will end with a folder. So you right click in the image, go to file, and here it's the folder. So this is the albedo, and okay, if I switch to Maya, an empty scene, I'll just create a plane, and first are the dimension. I am working in centimeters. So I'm going to assign them 25 centimeters. And 3 in subdivisions. And then I'm going to open the Hypershade. It's the material editor from Maya. And create a layered texture. This is the same as the composite. I think it's named in Max. And I'm going to drag from the folder the albedo. And if I open the attribute editor, I am going to drag with middle click the albedo to the color of the first layer, and I'm going to put it in blend mode of none, and create a new layer. Turn off the filter and row in the color space, and I'm going to duplicate it with the network connection, the albedo, and now replace it with the opacity. And assign the opacity to the second layer, again with middle click, and put it in multiply in the blending mode. Create a Lambert and assign the layer to the color of the Lambert, and assign the Lambert to the plane in the scene. So we end with this result, which it's nice because we have the color and the outliner of the mouse, and this will help us to assign the pivot more easily when we are about to do that. So I'm going to assign the card as a live surface and start working with the quad draw. And first I'm going to search for the simplest shape, and I believe one of these can be this, and I'm going to create a very simple shape. I use the quad draw because we will end with a very low poly count mesh, and this is pretty difficult to get with an automatized system. I will let you some videos and links that show how to do it with some retopology automatic system or something like so, but I do it manually because the amount of polygons it's pretty low. So if you think in the amount of final repetitions in the scatter, there will be a huge difference if this simple geometry it's complex or have one or two vertices more. So at this point, any low poly count that you can make, it's really important. And to work in Maya, these two settings of vertex boundary in sharp edge and UV boundary and in preserved edge are really important to fit the image within the geometry and the UV projection. So this is the best way to work. So I'll just try to make this shape, and also the center line to follow the center of the actual shape of the mouse. And this is really important to make the light follow the form of the mouse. As you know, the normals are generated in the vertices, in the vertex, sorry. So if you make follow the form of the mouse with the actual vertices, the end result are gonna be pretty smooth and really nice respect to the shape that you are trying to render. And now I am creating a new layer to put the card and use it as reference mode to work faster on the modeling process, so the card won't interfere with the modeling. So I'm just going to find similar shapes to this original geometry and just dupe it with Ctrl D, and with the transform tools try to get the other shape really fast, so I won't go and make the small details, so just copy and duplicate all the shapes that I need at this point. And try to find those who are similar to the original one. So you will find that there are really lot of similar shapes, and you will not have to rebuild a complete shape almost in all the card. You will find that most of them will be modifications of this original one. So the modeling process it's going to be more or less fast, but I believe it's necessary, because your final scene will have a really low poly count, and also the light will work nice with your geometry. So at this point it's try to have a balance between the amount of geometry and the shape that you are going to recreate with this geometry, and think that these shapes are really small shapes, so in the final scene they will have a really small amount of pixels in the final image. So you will have to create a balance between the shape that you want to create and the amount of geometry. So now I'm going to show you a, a few variations of the original shape, and how you can also duplicate the original to get those variations. This soft select is also a really nice tool at this point, and I think I'll just going to extrude maybe this edge. To end it, and there it is. No. Okay, viewing problem. So for this, I'm just try to get the principal shape first, and try to give the edge some relations to then create the extension shape. So as you see, I just go and extrude, and now we'll try to follow the second form. And as you see, this is going to be almost an impossible process with an automatic tool, because the automatic tool won't know where the intern form goes, because it's a flat image. So here, as you see, I'm just trying to create a really nice line to follow the light. And also try to give the vertex some equal distance. So as you see, I tried that this center line follow the most important shape of your geometry, and you will find that most of these shapes will have just a little variations from the original shape. So here are everything built, and as you see, I separate this part to give them more movement, because that's the other part. You will have to deform these cards. So these small ones, as you see, they're going to be really small, and the geometry is the most basic. These ones have 2 edge more, and these ones are also really low poly, but I'll try to follow, as you see, for example, the shapes of the branches for the lips. So here I'm just going to create the UVs, and I'm going to duplicate the card on the back, and for the copy or the duplicate, create this border edge. So this will create these rectangles at the border of the card, and they will fit exactly for my projection. So as you see, the UVs are pretty bad, and if I create those borders with the cards, just go to the UV editor and assign them all together a planar UV projection. So this planar will fit exactly the shape with those that I create before. So I'm just going to as this is a older version, I didn't assign the smooth properties that I told you and in the first part of the video. So here I will assign them, and you will see how the image in the interior do not deform when I preview with 3. It's just there. So if you assign those two settings before start duplicating, they all will have. So as you see, it fits and don't deform the image in the interior. So here I'm going to put the pivots. This process is really important, and you have to do it manually because the position is not in the center of the object. It's where you think that they will burn or grow. So this is where the scars are going to put them in the ground. So for example, these lungs, I believe it's on the bottom, but for the others are more in the middle. The next thing is to rotate this geometry and to make them the most straight as possible. As you see, a few of them are really rotated, so I don't want them to have pre-rotate settings. I want that the rotate settings come from the scattered settings that I make in the future. So I'm just going to rotate them and put the pivot where I believe they're going to grow. For these curved ones, try to make them straight. It's more difficult, but it's your own decision here. Okay, I'm going to show you the next part and what I done plus rotate and put the pivot. And here, as you see, there are a few cards who are pointing, I don't know, for this direction, and these are looking in this direction. So this is other thing that I want to assign them with the scattered properties. So I'm just going to flip these ones who are looking to the other side. For example, this, As you see in the other part, they are completely flipped, and everything it's more coherent in their original shape. I make a copy at this point because if any card have problems with the projection, I can go back to the original card, make the change in the geometry, and make a reprojection. So this point, it's really nice to have it as a reference point. And then with the copy, I'm just going to make some groups. So as you see, this top are group, the next also one group, and so on and so on. So this will help us to get everything more easily and faster when we make the scatters, because this will need to be in the center of the word when we work with mesh. So to really find them and work with them, it's going to be pretty impossible if you don't make good groups and good naming convention. For example, here I made this mid-size lichen, as you see, the leaves. So these short dead with are really small and black. So everything will give me some information for what it is inside, and it's going to be easier for me to search and make the scatter that I want. The next thing in here, it's going to duplicate again, so I can view them at that point. So I'm just going to select them individually and go to the source settings and check that this retain component spacing is turned off. So I'll just click in the middle of the pivot, and while holding X in the keyboard with the middle click, I'm just going to click in the center of the word, and everything is going to drag to snap to the center of the grid. So here we will have to think a few things before continue with this process. So here, as you see, this is the reason of creating the groups, because all of these are collapsed at this point. So if we wouldn't have those groups, this would be really hard. So I want to go back to bridge and check the geometry, the card, sorry. It's not clicking. I'm lost. There it is. Okay, one thing that you will notice is that these flowers, this part, I didn't make them geometry, and the reason is because it's going to be really hard to use them in the scatter. I don't know how to make them viewable within the other forms and size of the card. So these are things that you will need to think before create the geometry, because if you find in here I have this hole, and that's the reason, because I knew that these ones and also these top leaves will be really hard to make them viewable in the final scatter. So you will need to really understand the card before start working with it. And the next thing you will need to understand it's that these are really different kinds of moss, and more important, the bottom one are not moss, they are lichen. And if we go and find some reference of the moss, you will find that they grow in a perpendicular way from the ground, or for their own creation. So these top leaves, this top part, are going to be different from the bottom ones, because the bottom are lichen. And if I make a search for the lichen in here, you will find that the lichen it's the opposite way of creation. These go really flat on the surface where they are growing. So these are really key factors that you will need to have before start the scatter process. So I'm going to select my card and select all the groups that are within this top. So I'm going to let off these bottom ones. So here select all the first groups and let out this one. And isolate them and rotate them in the geometry section, not in the group. So this is going to be neat in the channel box 90 degrees, and okay, they are already looking in the y-axis, so mesh are going to understand that they are perpendicular for the creation surface. And the moss and the lichen, sorry, the bottom, as you see, are flat. So these are the two main difference for this for these two species or kinds. So now the next step is to deform a bit the geometry. This point, it's if you remember, in the original image I show you some flat moss and was using the scatter at this point with the moss in this point of deformation. So that's why those moss looks pretty flat and pretty alone, because they are not made with the new process. So the next thing, as I said, it's going to deform them a bit, and I'm going to use the bend modifier. So this is the actual result, and I made them by height. So the longest use one, and the mid one use other, and the small ones use other one. So this helped me to break the light when they're going to be rendered, and will have a really nice impact for the image, because they're going to have really or real deformations in the world. They are not going to depend only on the normal map who makes a fake shadow. So this part is going to be really important, and as you see, I made two different bend modifiers, one from the top who takes all the variations, and one from the side view, and this side view only works from the ground to the top, and it's not working under the ground. And as you see, it's a pretty subtle deformation, but this will really help on the final render. So yeah, this is the previous part, or all the preparation that we're going to have before start the scatters with the patches. So I'm going to leave this video up to this point, and I'm going to explain what we made. We went to Bridge and create the original card and recreate each card with the quad draw and duplicate in every single variation. Then we put the pivot in the origin point for each mouse, rotate them and flip them to have them in the same orientation all together, and then duplicate those ones and snap it to the center of the board. Then we decide which one goes straight and which one goes flat, and then we assign them some bend modifiers. So this is all the preparation part for the scatters, and I hope I'll see you in the next part, and thanks for watching.